She's passionate about telling stories of amazing women who are rocking the world and empowering women to live, love, and thrive. Here's your host, Katherine Gray.
Hi, welcome to Live, Love, Thrive Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you by 360karma.com. We hope you're joining the empowerment conversation that we're having on Facebook, and of course following us on Twitter and Instagram at My360Karma. And at 360 Karma, we try to provide the resources for you to be able to create your fate, so be sure to visit us there and find out about upcoming events and resources that we make available. Well, today I have a special guest that's moved here from the East Coast, back from where I'm from, and she is known as a divorce transformational strategist. Who doesn't need one of those at one point? And she's an author and voted one of the best attorneys in the country. I'm very pleased to welcome Rebecca Zung. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks
Good.
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. When we first talked, I couldn't believe, I know you moved here from the East Coast, which is where I'm from, but the odd thing is we actually grew up down the street from each other.
I know, so crazy. And we
Yeah.
kind of followed each other around.
We did.
Because I've been in Florida for the last 20 years or 20 plus years. That's where I went to law school.
Right.
And just in talking, we both lived in the Fort Lauderdale area.
Yep, we sure
but
did.
But before that,
Maybe we're related.
I know. Long ago in a galaxy far, far away, we both lived in McLean, Virginia, where we grew up.
I know. And nobody here in LA has ever heard of McLean, so I'm so happy to connect with you.
It's
and
just amazing.
not to have to explain where I was
born. It's like 2
born.
degrees of separation. In fact, your friend growing up was my babysitter.
I know.
So
I know.
crazy.
It's a small world, and it gets smaller every day for sure. So anyway, I'm glad that someone reached out, connected us, and that you're on the show talking about something that actually, I have a lot of different topics we talk about every week, but we have not yet really focused on divorce. And it does affect so many people. I mean, at least 50% of people, right?
And ongoing effects as well. There are 40 million Americans right now who are co-parenting with an ex.
Right.
So they're the people that are already divorced.
Yeah.
But there's
would you be one of those people?
I am.
Yeah.
But my children are my 3 from my first marriage are grown now because I got married at 19 the first time.
Wow.
And had 3 kids by the time I was 22.
And I hear this story all the time. It's a common story that people have had got involved at 19 or 20 or even earlier, and they have kids right away. And I love that your whole mission now is really helping people in that predicament that you were in as a young girl.
No doubt about it. I mean, it really stems from a couple of different things. One is that I did have that experience as a young girl. Myself, I got divorced in my 20s with 3 babies, and I went back to law school at night at University of Miami.
And I want to stop you here and just say, you did mention you came from a prominent family. And so, just for those listening, this scenario goes across all types of families. It's not, just lower income. That's what I'm trying to say. This is something that touches
Well, where I
people.
grew up, Cambridge Forest was a nice neighborhood. And my dad was a doctor. He was a chief of anesthesia at one of the hospitals in D.C. But he was Chinese and very, very tiger daddish. And so my version of rebellion was get married at 19 and have 3 children.
Yeah.
Who knows what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, and I do hear that a lot when people do say, I got married at 18 or 19 or 20. It's a rebellious act.
Yeah.
That kind of backfires.
Well, I mean, I'm grateful for my children, but, it was hard. It was a hard life.
Yeah.
And it was survival for a long time. And I tell people all the time that I am my own divorce transformation story. If I could do it with 3 babies, no money. I mean, once I got married, my parents said, no more money.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
Yep.
That's how it was in those days.
Yeah.
And
might be that way in these days.
I think it's different for the millennials. I think they still get a lot of help, more so from parents than we did. I mean,
it's true. A lot of them are living at home and whatnot.
Yeah. So, but there's a new divorce filed every 13 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I just got married, so I hope to never
And
be in
she's
that
staying
statistic.
married. That's the way it's
yeah,
going.
FYI.
She's not doesn't have me on because she's getting a divorce.
That's right. That's right. We've been together 7 weeks, and my friend
married
said, "Hey,
7
they
weeks.
said it wouldn't last." So there you go.
But we were together longer than the 7 weeks, I'm assuming, before that.
So, yeah, just a little. So, and we're not having kids at this point, but we do have a cute grandchild. So, knock on wood, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so divorce is really tough on the kids, right? And so now your parents got divorced too?
My parents got divorced too.
Wow.
When I was about 14 or 15 years old, my parents got divorced. They sold the house in Chainbridge Forest in McLean, where I grew up. My dad moved to a townhouse in Arlington in the Ballston area, and my mom moved to a condo near Tyson's Corner.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard, isn't it, when they're in two different states?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I would say I didn't have that experience, but for others, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens is if somebody wants to move to another state, first of all, those move away cases or relocation cases are really, really tough, very expensive, because there's no really splitting the baby. With money, you can say, well, let's meet in the middle or whatever. You can't do that when it comes to somebody who wants to move far away.
Right.
And what happens is you end up with a parenting plan that looks like the minute there's a vacation, they're at the other parent's house. So sometimes even if you win getting to move with the child or children, that means you give up every holiday, every vacation, all of summer, because the other parent, that's the only time that they get.
Right.
So it's really, really hard.
So let me ask you. So you got into what you're doing today, which we're going to talk about, which is really unique and I think very, very pioneering, very leading edge. And I want to talk about what qualifies you to do what you're doing today, and that is that after you went through this divorce with your single mom with 3 children struggling, you went back and got your law degree.
I did. I went back, got my law degree at night. I ended up meeting the woman who was the top divorce attorney in the state of Florida, who also happened to be half Chinese, and we had a lot of synchronicity in common. And she ended up hiring me.
And teaching you the ropes.
Teaching me the ropes.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of came up through the ranks, and I'm now a top 1% divorce attorney myself. I was just voted again top 1% by the National Association of Distinguished Counsel and Best Lawyer in America. And
really impressive.
All of those things. Wrote the book.
Are there a lot of women in that category? I would.
Probably a lot less women than men. If we're being honest, it's still not quite equal in the legal field. There's still women lawyers are still making
pick
a lot
field,
less.
any field. So I imagine that you're one of the few in that ranking.
It's sad to say, but I think in law schools there are a lot. I think it's probably 50-50 in the law school classes, but those who get to rise to the very, very top, it's less women, unfortunately.
I would think as a woman that I would want to work with a female attorney. I feel like there would be more of a connection, and especially since you have the same backstory and.
Well, and there's also I remarried. I met my husband in law school, and we have a 16-year-old daughter together. And when I was pregnant with her, and I was still an associate at the time, there were 2 partners, a man and a woman, and the man would make comments like, "Oh, how far along are you? 20 weeks? Oh, I guess it's too late to have an abortion," and things like that. I know, and I'd be like, well, this baby was planned, right? Men say things like that. At least I think the older generation of men, especially.
Is it that they think that you can't work and be effective and have a baby and be a mom? And,
no doubt about it.
And yet the two do integrate. So
lots of people do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're living proof of that.
Yeah.
So would you say that because it's been customary that the woman gets the kids and takes the kids, that it is really difficult being a single mom, having children, having to earn your way, and not having a lot of help is more common, I think, for women than for men, isn't it? It seems like it is.
I think it's changing. In
Yeah.
Florida, there's more of a dynamic of a 50-50 parenting plan now. But what I also see a lot of times, because in most states, child support is related to whatever the parenting plan is. So I do still see, unfortunately, a lot of men who are the moneyed spouse going for more time sharing, even if they don't necessarily want it, because they don't want to pay as much in child support. And then what happens is the final judgment gets entered, and then they just don't take the kids, but they have a final judgment that has them paying less in child support. So then the woman ends up with the kids most of the time.
And the financial
and
responsibility.
doesn't have the child support to
Right.
help out.
Right.
And then to go back and try to modify that is extremely difficult. Modification cases are very tedious and very expensive and hard to prove, and they take money.
Right.
So going back to what you said I'm doing now is I offer divorce resources online at breakingfreefromdivorce.com. I have modules there, videos, paperwork, all kinds of things, because I don't feel that it's been fair that the non-moneyed spouse does not have access to good resources, to
Right.
good attorneys, and we're talking about people's children
Right.
and their
This is
money and their
huge.
house.
So you've been through this yourself. You reinvented your life to be a divorce attorney after being through what you went through with it, being a single mom and struggling. It's an amazing story. And then you become this famous, amazing divorce attorney. You do that for like 18 years. And then you wrote this book, Breaking Free, a step-by-step divorce guide for achieving emotional, physical, and spiritual freedom. Because it really is about having all of those in balance, isn't it? Your emotions, your physical, and your spiritual. In order to
Absolutely.
survive it and thrive and be there for your children and, you know. So,
Absolutely. I always say there's a divorce paradox.
Yeah.
And the divorce paradox is that during the most traumatic time of your life, and divorce and death are always right at the top of the most traumatic things people have to deal with.
it is kind of a form of death.
It
Because that
is.
person is no longer in your life.
Correct.
Yeah.
So at the most traumatic time of your life, you have to make the most critical decisions of your life, and that's the paradox. You have to make decisions you're going to have to live with regard to your children and your money and your house and your business. And yet you can't think straight. You can't eat. You can't sleep. You're in this state of shock. And,
Right.
and so getting those emotions on track and
Right.
figuring out how to stabilize yourself is critical so that you can be able to move forward.
So they can go to RebeccaZung.com or
Freefromdivorce.com.
breakingfreefromdivorce.com. Okay, so somebody is in the midst of going through a divorce. They would pick up your book and go to this website to learn how to strategize or even meet with you to learn the strategy of how to go through the divorce.
Yes. So the modules are kind of in the phases of the divorce. So there's a module for before you actually file. You're still sitting at home, you're still with your spouse, you're thinking about maybe divorce, or maybe you're thinking your spouse might be, or you're fighting all the time. You want to know how this is going to look, what you should be thinking about, what should you leave your house, should you have money, how much should you have, all those kinds of things. There's a module for that. And then there's a module for, okay, we just filed. Now what do the next 60 to 90 days look like? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be thinking about? After the initial flurry of filing, there's a downtime. It's like hurry up and wait. And so I explain what's happening during that downtime. There's like a timeline of what's happening. And then I have modules specifically for what to look at for your financials, what to look at for your parenting plan, and how to negotiate. I have one whole module just on the 8 essential rules for winning negotiations in divorce.
Wow. So like I have a friend going through divorce right now. They could go to this website and literally learn so much about how to have this come out in their favor.
Absolutely,
Right.
and save so much money on attorney's fees because one of the things is, number one, the attorney doesn't really have time to sit down and walk you through the entire process. So you end up being left feeling like the angst comes from the fear of not knowing what's happening, not understanding what's happening, all of that. So, but also, even when you do meet with your attorney, sometimes you're in such a state of emotion that you don't even remember what he or she is saying to you.
Right.
You know, I've had people say, "Can I tape you?" because I get home and I don't remember what you said.
Yeah.
And so the modules are in 2 to 5 minute bites, snackable bites. So you can go back and say,
Are these videos?
they're
or-
videos,
Gotcha.
but they're, you know, one module might have 20 sections to it. So you can go back and go, I want to hear that part again about the top 10 mistakes that women make in divorce. Let me just go right to that and hear that
Right.
again.
What's one of them?
Well, that's one. Top 10 mistakes that women make in divorce. That's a module.
No, but I mean, what's one of the mistakes?
Oh, what's one of the mistakes? Letting emotions rule. And allowing themselves to be settle too quickly because they just want it over with.
Right.
They
They
don't.
need to hold out and make sure it's fair. And
Another one is giving away leverage too early. You know, I don't want to fight, so you know, I told him that I don't want any alimony, or I don't want half of his 401k or whatever. And I always say, please don't say that yet, because when he comes back at you with something that you don't like, you're going to need your leverage.
right. Oh, I see.
So
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And people aren't thinking clearly, so this helps them to be more rational.
absolutely.
But knowledge is power, right?
Knowledge is power, and I always say that knowledge is power, and up until now, divorce attorneys had all the knowledge and therefore all the power.
Right.
And so people would have, you know, you just kind of put it in their hands. And yet, if you got a cancer diagnosis or something, God forbid, you wouldn't just go, well, the doctor's handling it. Of course, you would
You'd
be
proactive. and,
figuring out what's actually going on and trying to understand. And
right.
but there's not good resources on the internet, or at least there haven't been until
Right.
now.
And so that's why you created this.
That
you
is
said,
correct.
Oh my gosh, there's a need for this. I'm going to fill that need
Correct.
and put that information out there. A lot of other attorneys probably wouldn't want that information out there because they won't want you to count on them. And
I would say short-sighted divorce attorneys would feel that way. If it had been me and this stuff had been out there when I was still, you know, practicing full tilt, I would have said, go watch these modules.
Right.
Because it would have made the client more manageable,
right.
I think.
I think it's great that you saw that and you created that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know, you know, you've also been featured on CBS and ABC and Vox and all these different networks. So you're out there spreading that message that if is it really talking to men and women, or is it really predominantly focused on women?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. I have never thought of my stuff as mostly for women, even though it's perceived that way. And I think it's because it's a self-help kind of a thing. Plus, I'm a woman. And so I think a lot of people think, well, it must be for women. I do find, though, that for the modules and my resources, a lot of men have been taking advantage. And I think it's because they're not talking about it with their friends the way women tend to. They're not getting that support.
Right.
They're working a lot of times, and so the modules are great for being able to watch on a Sunday or while you're at a traffic light. You're going to go, oh, this is a long light. Let me watch a 2-minute video.
Right.
So I think that it's really for both, but women tend to reach out for the self-help stuff, I think, more easily than men do traditionally.
And is this something anybody can afford?
Yeah, I think so. You can get the full package for less than 2 hours with the top divorce attorney. So, the full package is around $600 or something like that. So, I mean, a top divorce attorney here in LA is like $1,200 an hour. So it'd be like 30 minutes with an attorney out here.
Right, right. No, it definitely sounds very cost effective.
Right.
That anybody could afford it, put it on their credit card, and more listen to it and educate themselves, because going through a divorce is one of the most critical things a lot of people will do. It really has such an impact on their life, their future, their kids. And I think people should not go in blind. They should, if these resources exist, they should educate themselves so they go in powerful and knowledgeable. Yeah.
And by the way, the charges come up on the credit card as the online store, so that if you're still in the contemplation phase and you don't want your spouse to see divorce on there.
Yeah.
And the modules are on.
Oh, great. Put it on his card.
Yeah. And the modules are on, you create a membership area on my website.
It'll take $600. Are you looking at porn?
Yeah, exactly. The modules are on a membership area on my website, so you don't have to download them.
Yeah.
So you can watch them at any time.
Oh, you can watch them at any time. You don't have to put it on your computer or on your phone.
No.
Very discreet.
Yes.
Yeah. And what came first, the book?
The book.
Yeah.
I wrote the book about 5 years ago, actually. The book has been around for a while now.
And then you just said to yourself, oh, this would make so much sense to put this information and more into these video modules, because everybody seems, a lot of people don't even want to take the time to read today. They want to digest it through watching videos. So
well, and what happened is I had a lot of cases where there were custody issues that I knew that if the people hadn't hired me, they wouldn't have been able to. I mean, they would lose custody of their children.
Wow.
I mean, I had a guy who had
stakes are high.
Supervised time sharing. Because he had been falsely accused of domestic violence, hired me, and we were able to get him back to 50-50, and he actually even now has ultimate decision-making authority with regard to the children for medical and education.
Just curious, how do you know someone's falsely accused of that? I mean, that's got to be a tough position for you.
Well, I had several custody evaluators come in and get involved.
Gotcha.
The psychologists and things
so
like
they
that.
really come in and evaluate.
I had them evaluate
the accuracy of that.
Correct.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, because morally I don't feel it would be right to fight for custody and put the children in the hands of
right.
Yeah,
I was just wondering how you determine that. Yeah.
But I just really realized that if he hadn't had the resources to pay me, he would probably never have gotten his child back. So I really wanted to create something where people had access to all of the best information that's credible and reliable, and it's created by me, who, I know what I'm doing when in this field. So it's something that people can have access to and not have to pay a super high hourly rate.
I think it's brilliant, and I think if somebody is getting ready to go through a divorce, they should definitely visit your website, either RebeccaZung.com.
Rebecca Zung.
Sorry, RebeccaZung.com, or BreakingFreeFromDivorce.
Right.
.com.
That's it.
Okay, great. Or pick up the book, Breaking Free.
Yeah, and if they go to breakingfreethebook.com, for your listeners, I'm giving them a free copy. They just pay for the shipping, but they can get a free copy of my book. Just
Wow, you can't beat that.
breakingfreethebook.com.
breakingfreethebook.com. Well, thank you so much for being on and sharing it. It's a tough conversation, but it's such a prevalent thing in our society, unfortunately. But it's good to be able to empower, and I'm going to say women because we're all about women's empowerment, to empower women with this information so that they get a fair deal on that divorce and have the knowledge to make sure that it happens in the best interest of them and their kids and their overall family. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for what you're doing for women every week.
Thank you.
Right here.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be here again next week, of course, Wednesdays at noon. And you can catch us, obviously, on YouTube and iTunes, and follow us on iHeartRadio and others. Just subscribe to us so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you so much. Make it a great day. Hugs and happiness.